Chief Justice, eminent clergy, member of the Council of State, Upper East Regional Minister, President of the Echoed Court of Justice, Attorney General, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of State, Justices of the Supreme Court, and other Justices of the Superior Court of Judicature, judges, members of the Judicial Council, Judicial Secretary, President and members of the Bar Council, President of the Upper East Regional Bar, members of the Ghana Bar Association, President of the Upper East Regional House of Chiefs, Chanapio, Per Dikundina, Adiale, Ayajitam III, and other traditional rulers, fellow Ghanaians, ladies and gentlemen. It is always a great pleasure to be amongst a gathering of fellow lawyers. And once again, I thank the Bar Council most heartily for the invitation to be part of this year's Bar Conference. I want to record also my appreciation to the Council for making me a member in permanent good standing, i.e., one who does not have to pay dues. It is an enviable status, one which I cherish. My memories of Bar Councils, Bar Conferences past are full of the struggles and joys that marked my years of practice and involvement in politics. Never a dull moment, I suppose, will best describe those days. There was always something that we had up our sleeves. We felt we had to be true to the pioneers of the profession in Ghana, who were nationalists and did not limit the work or influence of the lawyer to the narrow interpretation of the practice of the law. They saw law as an integral part of all human existence. Some of the most exciting moments of my life have played out during Bar Conferences. It is from this perspective that I speak and say that the theme you have chosen for this year's conference, ensuring an increase in revenue mobilization through taxation for the purpose of accelerated national development, the role of the lawyer, must surely be one of the bravest that has been taken. Reading your letter of invitation and the theme of the conference brought a warm feeling to my heart, for it showed that this generation of lawyers is as nationalistic in outlook as any of the earlier generations were. I believe there's a saying, and if there is not, there should be, that you can only fight the battles that you meet. The early lawyers were confronted with colonialism and went with enthusiasm into the battle for the fight for national freedom and independence. When we had governance issues, the latter lawyers took up the fight for personal freedoms, human rights, and civic liberties. Bar conferences became concerned with constitutional rule, freedom of the press, independence of the judiciary, and other matters that were of paramount concern and interest to the citizens who wanted to live under a governance structure that was insulated from authoritarian rule, whether of the one-party, union government, or military variety. The Bar joined wholeheartedly in the search of the people for democratic governance, where power emanates from the open decision of the ballot box, not from the coercive force of the gun, secretly undertaken behind the backs of the people. Next year will mark the 30th anniversary of the historic choice made by the Ghanaian people on 28 April 1992, when in the referendum of that day, they expressed overwhelmingly by a 92.6% margin their commitment to democratic governance under a constitution that guarantees the full enjoyment of fundamental human rights and civic liberties. The decision has ushered our nation into the longest uninterrupted period of stable constitutional democratic governance in her history, which has experienced under the Fourth Republic 3 peaceful transfers of power through the ballot box on 3 separate occasions. The anti-democrats, who are always looking for occasions to snare at democratic governance, should also bear the following data in mind. The 1970s and 1980s, the periods of unbridled authoritarian rule on the continent, were the eras of economic decline, worsening poverty, collapsing infrastructure, and insecurity on our continent. GDP per capita in 1970, for example, according to the World Bank, stood at $220. The third wave of democratization on the continent, beginning in the 1990s, saw GDP per capita rise substantially to $605 in United States dollars in 1995, declined marginally to $547 in the year 2000, and in 2017 increased to $1,550 United States dollars. In Ghana, it was $398 in 1990, declined to $258 in 2000, and it is now $2,223 United States dollars. Another key index of human development, life expectancy at birth, was estimated by the World Bank at 45 years in 1970 in sub-Saharan Africa. By 1990, this had increased to 50 years, and in 2019, life expectancy at birth on the continent was 61 years. In Ghana, it was 49 years in 1970 and 64 years in 2019. According to data from the World Bank, gross primary school enrollment in sub-Saharan Africa in 1970 stood at 54% and had increased to 98.9% in 2019. It was 64% for us in Ghana, and by 2019 was 105%. The implementation of the free senior high school policy has brought 1.2 million Ghanaian children into the education ecosystem, the highest number of students in secondary school in Ghana's history, 400,000 of whom would otherwise have been excluded. The National Health Insurance Scheme is operating more adequately and is enjoying the confidence of the increasing number of its users, with the number of active members up from 10.6 million in 2016 to 12.3 million at the end of 2019. The goal in sight is to attain universal health coverage for all. Clearly, democracy has been beneficial for the continent and for our country. We know, however, that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and vigilant we shall be here in Ghana. We shall not let our guard down and allow the clammy embrace of the people by anti-democrats who are disdainful and incapable of effective popular mobilization through accepted channels, but who want shortcuts to power without the express support of the people. Today, there is no question but that the most important thing on most people's minds is the need for accelerated national development to improve living standards and generate jobs for the mass of the people, especially the youth. On that question, we are all agreed. However, not everyone is ready to take the next step to the recognition that accelerated national development can best take place with a dramatic increase in revenue mobilization. And very few will then take the next further step to accept that revenue mobilization will happen principally through taxation. In our society, we have unfortunately not yet reached the stage of universal acceptance of taxation as a matter of public good. Fellow members of the bar, it is most reassuring that you have chosen to place the lawyer right in the middle of the process for revenue mobilization. Taxation is not popular and was the Achilles heel of all colonial powers throughout history. I hasten to add that it is not only a Ghanaian phenomenon for people to be unenthusiastic about paying taxes. As Benjamin Franklin, one of America's founding fathers, put it in one of his famous quotes, taxes are not something that people look forward to. He put it in the same bracket as death. With your indulgence, let me state the full quotation, because I believe the situation Benjamin Franklin faced and described in 1789, a decade or so after the inauguration of the American Republic, is not very different from ours. He said, and I quote, "Our new Constitution is now established and has an appearance that promises permanency. But in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes," unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, our Constitution also now promises permanency, having lasted despite various challenges for 29 years. Death has not changed its certainty. It will come when it will. The only thing we have not done is to make taxes regular, predictable parts of our lives. It is time to make the payment of taxes a certainty in our society. Our tax to GDP ratio of 14.3% compares unfavorably with our peers the world over. The average tax to GDP ratio in West Africa stands at 18%. And indeed, the recommended ratio for West Africa for ECOWAS member states is at least 20%. The average for OECD countries is 34%. It is thus no wonder that American, German, French, Japanese, and British peoples, amongst others, can readily find the means to fund their own development, particularly their infrastructural development, whereas we are constantly struggling to do the same. There is therefore an urgent need to enhance significantly our capacity for domestic revenue mobilization to realize our development potential, create opportunities for our vibrant and dynamic youth, and deliver improved livelihoods for our fellow citizens. The necessity for increased mobilization of resources for national development is crucial. It can no longer wait. There are critical needs in all sectors in all parts of the country. Not too far from where we are gathered, torrential rains have caused havoc and washed away bridges and roads. Farms have been destroyed and investments have disappeared under floodwaters. These are just new additions to an already difficult situation of a long list of infrastructural deficits that require a lot of money for their elimination. COVID-19 has brought extra devastation to our economies, and we have not seen the end of it to be able to say we can start counting our losses. The only certainty we do have is that we need a lot of resources to engender the rebuilding of the economy. Hence the exceptional significance of government's Ghana Cares or Bantampa program, which is seeking to raise 100 billion cedis from both public and private sectors to finance the revitalization of our post-COVID economy. I'm glad that the bar has decided to enlist the undoubted strength of lawyers to help in the mobilization of resources through taxation. We must admit, though, that usually when lawyers are mentioned in relation to taxes, it is not in the best of lights. The tax lawyer is more often than not seen as the person that is helping people to escape paying what should properly be due to the state. The whole world has heard about the exploits of the famous tax lawyers that make it possible for the big companies to escape paying anything like what they should otherwise have to. They are the same tax lawyers who help billionaires pay less taxes. We heard the other day the astonishing news that some billionaires in the United States of America pay almost no income taxes and help one or two politicians pay the level of taxes they are ashamed to make public. There is one thing we do know, and in the unlikely event we do not know, we would have to accept quickly. We can never and should never forget the reality of our geography and our history. For the moment, we have work to do to convince the people of Ghana that if we are to get the developments we all crave, then paying taxes must become a regular and unquestioning feature of our lives. I do not suggest that lawyers take a vow of poverty and not make money, honest money, out of practicing as tax lawyers. As long as there are taxes, there will be tax lawyers, and there will always be a requirement for tax law expertise. Taxes can be confusing at times, and a good tax lawyer can guide and help keep businesses afloat or families' finances intact. It is at this time when we're trying to build a culture of paying taxes that we have a special demand for lawyers who would inspire confidence in the people that it is worth doing. I would dare say that the theme you have chosen for the conference, ensuring an increase in revenue mobilization through taxation for the purpose of accelerated national development, the role of the lawyer, is as relevant a clarion call for our times as self-government now or self-government within the shortest possible time, depending on your inclination, was for our forefathers. 64 years after we achieved our independence, nobody needs to tell us that today's battle cry is indeed for accelerated national development. And it is heartening that within its finest tradition, the bar, as usual, is taking the lead in this important national exercise. Having spoken at length about how far-sighted it is for the bar to have taken this decision to support efforts to increase revenue mobilization through taxation, I trust I'll be allowed to go a step further into more uncomfortable territory. I have to point out that if this campaign you're undertaking is to be successful, you will have to start from home. Mr. Outgoing President of the Bar, I'm afraid there's no easy way of putting this. You will have to start from getting members of the bar to pay their taxes. The record of lawyers in paying taxes has been historically poor. It is unfortunate, but a most unpleasant fact that members of the professions in our country have not been known to set a good example when it comes to paying taxes. They appear to think that being members of the learned professions put them above complying with everyday civic duties, like paying taxes. It is embarrassing that lawyers are often at the top of the list of those who flout our tax laws and use their expertise to avoid paying taxes. The Ghana Revenue Authority has told a disturbing story about what it discovered earlier this year when it started working with the Registrar General's Department and the National Identification Authority. It found that there are some 60,000 professionals working in the country who are totally outside the purview of the tax authorities. These professionals are lawyers, they are accountants, they are doctors, they are engineers, they are surveyors, they are architects. In other words, they are part of the crème de la crème of Ghanaian society, and they do not pay taxes. They will soon be receiving friendly phone calls from the tax authority. I sincerely hope that those involved would move swiftly to regularize their tax affairs before the GRA moves to crack the whip. Indeed, prior to my coming to office in 2017, only a small proportion of our population, i.e., some 750,000 people, was registered by GRA with tax identification numbers 10. As a result of the effective rollout of the National Identification Card, spearheaded by one of our own, the Ibalian Ken Atifwa, which has been integrated with GRA to form the TIN number, we now have a taxable population of some 15.5 million people in just 4 years. Government has introduced other measures that make it easy for institutions and individual taxpayers to be compliant. These include implementing initiatives such as Revenue Assurance and Compliance Enforcement, RACE, Ghana.gov, Paperless Port, the National ID Ghana Card, Digital Property and Address System, and Cashless System. These policy interventions are running smoothly, and I urge you to take advantage of these innovations to regularize your tax affairs and advise your clients to do the same. The Integrated Customs Management System, ICOMS, at our ports has been introduced to facilitate trade and block revenue leakages. Already, despite the initial opposition of vested interests, it is paying dividends. Customs revenue, prior to the implementation of ICOMS, for the period June 2019 to May 2020, stood at 11.25 billion cedis. Between June 2020, the start of ICOMS, and May 2021, teething challenges, ill-considered propaganda, and the impact of COVID-19 on global trade notwithstanding, customs revenue has increased by 27.6% to 14.36 billion cedis. Additionally, government is exploring data warehousing, data matching, and artificial intelligence to identify tax defaulters. Whilst government narrows the fiscal gap by implementing target revenue generating initiative, much is also expected from taxpayers to be responsive in equal measure for the speedy full realization of moving Ghana to a situation beyond aid. When I say the bar is demonstrating courage by getting into the subject of taxes, I do not exaggerate. I wish all of us a lot of luck, and I shall be watching keenly how this project progresses. Before I end, I must make a comment on the choice of Bolgatanga as the site for this year's BARS conference. It is the third time in my recollection that the conference is being held in the northern sector of our country, after Tamale in 2000 and 2010. I congratulate you for venturing out of your comfort zone and coming to Bolgatanga, even though there's in fact nothing difficult about the location of the conference. I see that these very pleasant premises have been aptly named by their founder, the celebrated priest, the Reverend Eastwood Anaba, who gave such an inspiring opening prayer for this conference in this magnificent auditorium, Desert Pastures. And I cannot think of a more suitable name to call this beautiful and well-ordered place. I'm hopeful that it has encouraged those lawyers who stay only in Accra and other big cities and imagine the rest of our country to be thatched roof mud houses to explore other parts of our country. You'll discover, yes, we have problems, but we're also making steady progress. May God bless the Ghana Bar Association and us all. And may God bless our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong. I thank you very much for your attention.